Welcome to Fight Song Podcast. Happy New Year to those of you that abide by that calendar. It was brought to my attention that we didn't introduce ourselves in episode 1, so the voice you're hearing now is Dan Wilburn. I certainly don't want to be confused with Sacha Dunable when he starts spouting bad takes about 90s Aerosmith. But that's for another episode. In this one, we match up Metallica's Enter Sandman and Megadeth's Symphony of Destruction, two huge crossover metal hits. And please excuse that Sacha sounds like some kind of bisexual robot in this episode. It was recorded over the holidays and we were both on the move. I was on my mobile recording rig and he was just calling in through the phone. Head to FightSongPodcast.com to vote on this episode's matchup and to check out episode 1, and we'll drop another episode soon. So we're on to episode 2. What did you think of the first episode when I sent you the cut?
I thought it was good.
Almost 900 people pressed play on it. 850 were probably me just testing it, but
yeah, I still don't know if I buy how legitimate that is.
I looked right on the server, like on our hosting plan thing, and I saw that Smash Mouth made a nice late comeback, not to win, but a respectable 55-45 on the voting thing.
Oh, but Sugar Ray
Fly won episode 1. If there can be a winner in such a matchup.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that just makes sense to me. I feel like I'm not surprised by that one bit.
This one's going to be a little bit different because if I never heard those two songs again, that would be fine. And then we don't know a lot about the bands, but with Metallica versus Megadeth, these are songs I still enjoy and will throw on every once in a while.
There's a lot of baggage, both good and bad, with these songs. Do you even have I don't know if I know which one I like better. Do you have one that you are like sort of rooting for?
It's hard to not pick Metallica because it's the bigger song and kind of like a more definitive song overall. And I think I've probably heard Symphony of Destruction less. It's less played out in my life. I kind of wanted to introduce this episode, and then it bugs me when people shit on the Black Album.
I agree.
It might just be me being nostalgic about it because I didn't know Metallica before that. Were you on board with Justice, and then the Black Album was like a less metal follow-up? Is it the first Metallica I heard was Enter Sandman and the Black Album?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was my first introduction to the band as well. Because like you... What year were you born? I was born in 81.
We're both born in 81.
Yeah, we were like 9 or 10 when Enter Sandman hit, MTV and your
I remember,
local rock radio station.
I remember hearing it in the basement of my dad's house, and when I heard Exit Light, I thought it was like a new word, like Exolite, and I thought it was cool.
Because a lot of words to you at that point in your life are new.
That was the first pairing of Exit Light I had ever heard.
Yeah.
But
it could have been some new word. There's probably some other words in that song that you had never heard before as a human being. You just hadn't learned yet.
Oh, like maybe that was the first, no, whoa, whoa.
Right.
But I guess I can see, if I was younger in high school at that time when I finally got into it and met anyone that was, had gone past their gateway metal band and was on to Pantera and Slayer, they thought the Black Album sucked.
Justice is probably my favorite Metallica record, but back to the Black Album, that shit was heavy for a 9 or 10-year-old.
And then later when you're like, oh, this is all in E except for Sad But True, this is like crazy heavy for standard tuning.
Well, there's a lot that went into that production, I don't know if you've ever gotten nerdy about the making of that album.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, and I kind of get why bands that make masterpieces like that are tired of it afterwards. Like, well, we could probably sell almost as many records and do this in a month instead of a year and a half. But I love that record as a super high fidelity metal record. It's just not very fast, and there's not a lot of.
But in hindsight, when you as an adult go back and sort of have the context of their whole catalog, it's really kind of like some pussy shit. But at the time, it was scary. it was like a scary album. It was actually like almost too like dissonant for me at the time. You know, I was like into like Guns N' Roses around the same time. Like Illusion, I feel like I remember buying the Illusion 1 and 2 and like Dr. Feelgood maybe. Just all those records of that 1 or 2 year era from the same store. And the Black Album was probably the hardest one to get into because it was too much. It was just too scary and dark.
It was, I also came from kind of like the big guitar bands. So like AC/DC and Aerosmith and Ozzy and Black Sabbath and Metallica just being, that record has such bite.
Yeah, it's
His
mean.
vocals are just right in your face, but
there's also like no, it's worth noting that there's no bad words on the entire record. That was the one that my parents had the least problem with out of all those records at the time. He says crap in Holier Than Thou.
In Holier Than Thou. That was a song my friend played me and was like, listen how metal this is. And then I know this is in one of the documentaries somewhere, but that was the one that Bob Rock thought would be the single, but then James wrote the lyrics and it wasn't.
They probably still would have been a huge band, but
yeah, probably with like the 6 other singles, one of them probably would have hit. Such a good way to start the record. Like it feels like you're with Enter Sandman, like you're about to get into something. Something's about to happen.
Great build up. Oh yeah.
That's how you start a record. That's
how you do it.
Listening through Countdown to Extinction, kind of prepping for this, Skin of My Teeth opens the record, which is an okay song, but I think they should have opened with Symphony because it just kicks your dick right up top.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably would have been better. Skin of My Teeth is a good opener. It's like a rip snorter, as you know.
Do you have Megadeth fandom in your arsenal? Because I'm a little bit ignorant
not really
of the discography in a way that I'm not with Metallica. Those I know all those records but even now only go back to Master of Puppets maybe like a couple times a year or the box set. Just do an hour of that and then you're set for a few months.
Oh, those live records? Oh, those are amazing. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Like if you're like me, you listen to Rest in Peace and maybe you don't know half the songs.
Yeah, Megadeth was the scarier one for me. That was like the band that my friends' older brothers were already into, and they lived in the basement, and they had a poster of Peace Sells But Who's Buying, and Metallica's imagery I feel like was kind of vague, but Megadeth always had Vic and the skeleton face on everything, and that was scary to me.
Yeah, and Metallica I think was just more accessible. I think they were more... Or maybe, I don't know, with, what's that album called? Countdown to Extinction. Maybe it was on TV and on the radio as much, but maybe just, I don't know, wasn't as...
Yeah, I didn't hear it as much. It wasn't the tip of the iceberg of the Black Album was first in 91, and then Countdown was 92.
Oh, so it was later, okay.
This is an apples to apples comparison, only in that it's the breakthrough crossover hit.
Yeah,
a metal band
for both bands, right?
I keep saying this when I turn on the radio and this song comes on, but I don't know if anyone listens to the radio anymore, but because I drive a fair amount back and forth from New York to Columbus, I often scan the radio. So I love catching both of these songs, but I think I've just heard Symphony of Destruction less.
So it's a little more exciting. It's a very well-written song. I would almost, you know what, it's starting to creep out into the lead for me a little bit because I just remembered something. You know that the main riff in Enter Sandman is like pretty much lifted from an Excel song.
Oh, I've never heard that.
I'm going to Google this while we talk. But yeah, and as far as I know, everything in Symphony is, you can't trace it back to anything.
Have you ever heard there's a demo of Symphony on maybe the re-release of Countdown to Extinction, and it starts a little differently. It's like a great little lesson in a producer coming in and being like, so we're not going to do that, but you should do this if you want this to be a really great radio hit, which was kind of the case, it seems like, with the entire Black Album that Bob Rock's...
Oh, that was for sure edited, yeah. It was very edited.
Here's how you turn your underground successful band into one of the biggest bands in the world. Just
back to what you were saying about maybe starting the record with Symphony of Destruction. I feel like that's a really smart way to do a record. It's like, Master of Puppets is great in that way. You got Battery and then the song Master of Puppets, right?
Yeah. I love the opening of
because the opening just rips, it kicks you in the dick, as you say. I just want to get my dick kicked as hard as possible. And then you follow it up with the title track. I will not say the same thing for the Black Album.
You mentioned this to me that you thought the album order was bad.
By the way, can we just go back? Excel, the song is called Tapping into the Emotional Void, which is a terrible song title, but it's definitely the Enter Sandman riff. But it happened before Enter Sandman. But let's just look at the Black Album track listing.
I gave it a listen on a long drive yesterday. I kind of wish Holier Than Thou were second. I think it's a good track too, and then Sad But True would be third. But I don't think I have a lot of gripes.
Okay, yeah, definitely. You know what? I just would have done Holier Than Thou first, kick in the dick, and then Enter Sandman.
So you're gonna pull the quintessential side one, track one, and make it not pretty sweet opening track.
It's a fist pumper. I guess it's not in the wrong place, but you could have stacked that side one a little bit better. Sad But True could be like track 11 as far as I'm fucking concerned.
Yeah, you shit on that song in another conversation, and I think that's such a heavy riff, and I like that the song's kind of weird. I could go with it in another place on the record, but
too long. Don't Tread on Me also could have been on side 2.
But they like that third chorus. The third chorus after the third verse. They love a third verse after the lead. Go back to the verse.
Jesus Christ, it's so fucking long.
When
I would have traded. Sorry, we'll get to your fucking little story here in a second.
Let me get my anecdotes in here while you read off of the internet.
I'm just saying, Holier Than Thou could have been first. Sad But True, side 2. Don't Tread on Me, side 2, and then you put The God That Failed, and I don't know any of these others, Through the Never on side 1. Anyway, please go on.
Yeah, The God That Failed is a good late hit, like a good deep cut.
Way better fist pumper than Sad But True. Same tempo, kind of ish, right?
I think the swing of Sad But True is better than a lot of the latter half of the Black Album, but I like those songs. But is Sad But True your least favorite song on there? Because when I went, and I asked because the comparison that I was making as I listened to both records, the Black Album is so solid all the way through, and there's all the singles that we've heard for years, and there's really only, like, Foreclosure of a Dream was a single on Countdown to Extinction, and then there's some fan favorites like Sweating Bullets and maybe Skin of My Teeth, but I don't know if there was another radio jam other than Symphony and Foreclosure of a Dream.
What's the song that was on the Last Action Hero soundtrack? It's one of those, I think.
Angry Again, I think, might have just been on the Last Action Hero soundtrack.
Oh, really?
It sounds like it belongs on that record, though.
Was there only one Megadeth song on that?
Well, that's what Wikipedia says, but then it said it was written exclusively for the inclusion in the 1993 satirical action film Last Action Hero, which I've only seen on Laserdisc, by the way.
I saw it in the fucking theater.
Wow, that's pretty meta of you going to watch the kid watching the movies in the theater. Angry Again was nominated for Best Metal Performance of 93.
Wow. I'll tell you, this just to put into context how much of a pussy I was back then in 93. My favorite songs on this CD, on this soundtrack, were the Def Leppard song.
Tell me it was a Def Leppard one. God damn
it was
you.
The Def Leppard song and the Dream On with the orchestra, right? Wasn't that?
Yeah, I liked the Aerosmith with the orchestra so much that the original was unrecognizable to me when it came on and I heard it for the first time.
Oh, yeah, because it's a full re-recording, right? Like his voice is all different, right?
It's a live performance with the orchestra.
Yeah, right. So yeah, the original, his voice sounds all fucking.
Yeah, he sounds like a kid even. Old.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "That's Aerosmith too." Shut up, Mom. They played at her high school because she went to high school in Boston, and Aerosmith played a dance.
Were they already famous?
I think this was pre-fame. They're just like a bunch of townies But back to, is Sad But True your least favorite song on there? Because I find the album to be pretty strong. I don't really get tired of any of the songs.
I don't know if if it's my least favorite. It's tied for least favorite with
My Friend Misery.
I don't even know if I remember that song. Also, Jason Newsted co-wrote that song, so how good could it fucking be?
It starts with a bass riff, so
yeah, I probably skipped that song every single time. I probably never even heard it.
I don't know if the interviews are new, but it's the most recent thing on the Megadeth Spotify. There's some interviews with Dave. It's pretty early on. It's before Countdown. Dave's always been kind of outspoken, and Metallica was just kind of bros, not really talking about anything but Metallica, and like they weren't making comments on actual specific politics or dropping George Bush Sr. audio clips into Foreclosure of a Dream. That wasn't really Metallica's
right.
style.
I know what you mean. It's less palatable, especially for a kid. You're like, what do you like? I don't understand what you're angry about. And also your voice is way more annoying than I feel. So I'm just going to go listen to fucking Metallica.
There's something to it, but the snarl and whine doesn't make me feel like fuck the system.
And you don't really even know what the system is because you and I were 9 and 10 years old. 92, we were 11.
In all fairness, I wasn't buying that record at 11. I probably didn't get to it until I was 14 or 15.
Right, but you saw the videos or something, you know what I mean? And there's just something about that didn't just speak to you. Because at that time, you're concerned with, like, getting your hands on a fucking porno mag and maybe, like, wondering what beer tastes like or something, why it seems so cool. I don't know. Like, that's where I was at.
Trying to get in a room with a cigarette, maybe.
Get in the room with a cigarette, yeah.
I'm not trying to take down the organization. That's what punk is for, Megadeth. Just bring the heavy or the fast. But then on the other side, Megadeth has made really consistent records that are pretty much metal throughout, but maybe not as good overall as peak Metallica. But Metallica drops off the face of Metal Earth for a decade before making another palatable metal quote-unquote record. Have you heard the new record, by the way?
I did make it like at least halfway through.
The songs are kind of long unnecessarily. It was like a good try to get back to something interesting.
It's just fine. And I feel like they've been trying to do just that this whole time. Like, I'm not trying to like hate on them because you can't expect them to be.
They've given enough, right?
They'll still always be my favorite metal band, although I don't think they've written an album that I've liked since, the album we're talking about on this podcast.
You heavily shit on Load when I was trying to text you about the validity of it and just being like, hey, this is not so bad.
This is what happened. It's like they made Saint Anger just so that everybody would be like, you know what, Load's not that bad. And then like they can put out records after, like any record they put out after Saint Anger, people are like, whoa, they're good again. It's like they're just not making the worst record again. And fine, like whatever. They don't need to make any good records ever again. They'll still be my favorite band. Like I said, I waited for 45 minutes online to try and get tickets for this club show they did in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago. I was going to pay $100 a ticket to go see them because they're my favorite heavy metal band. I don't like any song after the Black Album, except for Until It Sleeps.
I remember seeing, I think it was an MTV Icon, which I don't know if they do anymore, but where a bunch of bands cover a band's song for the night and they sit in the audience and nod their heads.
Right.
And at the end of that, they played like 2 or 3 songs at the end over the closing credits. And they played in like a lower tuning, and it was kind of like mid-tempo, but it sounded good because it was live and wasn't ruined by... It probably was on Saint Anger, or songs probably ended up on Saint Anger, but I remember thinking to myself, like, all right, so they're doing a little bit what the kids are doing, but like it's still heavy and good.
Can we talk about who they had do that show and like cover their songs?
Let me consult
They should have just not existed from like 97 to 2007.
Oh, the point of that was that the last few albums have been so bad, but live, I bet it would still be fun to see, or that the songs would come off well live, even if my lifestyle determines my death style.
I might go pee during that song, but yeah, if I had already peed, during another song, I would stand there and watch it and maybe pump my fist.
Here were the performers of the 2003 Metallica Icon.
Okay.
He had Sum 41 doing a medley of For Whom the Bell Tolls, Enter Sandman, and Master of Puppets. Stained doing Nothing Else Matters. Avril Lavigne doing Fuel, which...
Dude.
Could there be a more 2003 artist on the list? Snoop Dogg, Sad But True.
See, why? Why did that happen?
Korn doing One. Limp Bizkit doing Sanitarium.
See.
And then Metallica came on and did Hit the Lights, Enter Sandman, Blackened, Creeping Death, Battery, and then what I saw appears to be Frantic. That was the last song of the...
That's the one that determines your death style.
And I was like, all right, I can get into this.
Wow. Can you see? That's where they just really had lost their way. That's what happens when you just get so big. You're like, oh, we're the same as Snoop Dogg and Avril Lavigne. Like, these people can just cover our songs, and this is good television and good for our careers.
Yeah, that's insane.
Avril Lavigne. Like, how do you let that happen if you're them?
You must get paid a lot to just let that happen.
Yeah. We can only hope that they didn't actually think it was a good idea.
That's the cheesy shit that, I mean, whatever. You're one of the biggest bands in the world. There's going to be some baggage that comes with that. But I feel like when both of these bands hang it up, Megadeth's got to feel pretty good about their credibility, other than Dave. Not that you can't be Christian and metal, but it's a weird turn to take as like an outspoken, I'm thinking about the world person.
Yeah, well, another reason that Megadeth is just not very important to me is that they're not really a band, you know? It's just Dave Mustaine. And I guess Dave Ellefson, I mean, how long is he? I mean, even he is kind of like not even been there the whole time, right?
Yeah, I think it's always been Dave's
rest in peace
thing.
Or something. So far, so good. Maybe. But yeah.
Do you find it harder to talk about songs that it seems like it's harder for us to talk about songs that we like?
Well, we've also talked about them so much before.
The most hateable thing about Metallica is Lars. Are we in agreement?
I guess so, yeah.
And I feel like making fun of him is some pretty low-hanging fruit, because
it's an easy target. That's why I was hesitant to like agree with that.
But this is what I wanted to ask. Do you think that Lars is a good drummer?
Like currently, or just like...
Well, I have some follow-up to that, but I wanted to just throw it out there to you in a...
I think that he's an important drummer. A good drummer.
That's the thing. It's hard to say that he's good.
But I do think that he has a good style, because there's a lot of drummers out there, but he had his own thing with the crashing on the, like, you know, the snare hit instead of like the kick on the downbeat. You know?
A lot of snares on the one there for Lars.
And there's a lot of, you know what, even though they're kind of basic, like, there's a lot of really good fills happening and a lot of good beat flipping happening from Master all the way through the Black Album.
I think what I got from my recent listen was that he's not good at playing fast. A lot of like eighth note fills and some rather elementary things going on, but then he's good in the sense, especially on the Black Album, playing around the vocals and doing stuff that's memorable, and maybe is probably mediocre to bad in some other bands. Like if you put him in some more complicated music, but he's good at writing Metallica songs and having. I think it's hard to have a voice as a drummer, but you know Lars Ulrich drums.
Yeah, well, you know what though? Like Metallica was pretty technical, like especially like Justice. Even on the Black Album, they snuck in some like technicality here and there.
There's some really tight swinging stuff on Wherever I May Roam. Has some stuff that just doesn't, things don't happen just 4 times in a row and then change. Don't Tread on Me.
Great. That might, by the way, that's maybe my favorite song on the Black Album. And Don't Tread on Me, Keep Going. That's another great example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's just of Wolf and Man's got some ins and outs that are just, enough to not be 4 straight things and then the next thing happens.
Exactly. It's like, James was like, like I think maybe we should add on this like other bar on this riff here, and Lars could just take it in stride.
Yeah.
And do tasty. And I think that's much more important than any kind of like amazing technical ability. Just keep the fist pumping, bro.
As you get older and you've written more songs, you look for that, which is probably why most bands slow down if you were fast before. There's smarter stuff to happen if you're not just blazing through.
Exactly.
And I feel similarly to Kirk and his leads, who I think is a good guitar player, but he's just good at writing these memorable... As I say this, I'm like, have I just heard them so many times that they're memorable? But he's got some catchy lead stuff that is not as proficient as maybe, some of the other metal, like Dimebag could smoke him, I feel like, or Zakk Wylde. But really memorable lead stuff going on.
Yeah, I feel like in the leads, and maybe it was like the riffs sort of like, I mean, any actual person who knows anything about music will probably be like, you're an idiot, but I feel like Metallica always had this thing that other metal bands didn't have. In my head, as a 9 or 10-year-old, I was like, this sounds almost like classical music because they had like harmonies and stuff. I also wanted to say that Megadeth did not have what we were just talking about as far as the like adding little things here and there to the song structure just to kind of break up what your ear is expecting. And this is why Metallica is just a better band in general than Megadeth or any other fucking metal band for that matter.
They're like the dads of metal for me.
Yeah.
In a good way. Something about this matchup brings out a seriousness in me that is like, this is important to get this right because we might not talk about this again for 300 episodes and people need to know we know what's up.
Do we need to like cast our vote on what we...
Yeah, but it's nearly impossible not to vote for Metallica. It's like a dissenting vote to be like, I think Symphony of Destruction is better. Because I enjoy them both the same amount, but the impact of Enter Sandman cannot be denied.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everything you just said about that, I feel the same way.
Especially at that time, but even recently, I've had a real love for Symphony of Destruction. The lead, I think, is so smoking in a way that I probably couldn't have recognized early on. It just has a lot of moves in it that aren't what you hear all the time in the typical rock metal lead. Yeah.
I feel like we did talk about the song structures before and how they're very similar, where you have the verse is, kind of rocking and upbeat, right?
Yeah, and then the chorus is there's a halftime part of the chorus.
Yeah, you kind of halftime it, break it down a little bit. And then both choruses are slammers, although maybe Enter Sandman is a little bit bigger. It's just kind of just sounds and feels bigger all around. But I will say that the pre-chorus in Symphony of Destruction might be one of my favorite pre-choruses in all heavy metal songs that have pre-choruses in them.
That nice hot-rodded little progression.
Let me ask you this, because I know you're a little more familiar with the solo in that song than I am. Is there wah in Symphony of Destruction?
No. Does it immediately win for you now?
Well, no, I don't think it wins. I'm just going to say that's Mustaine's first fucking mistake. And that's why his album put a #1 like Metallica's did, and why he relapsed into taking fucking pills or heroin or something. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about.
I haven't.
It's a great read. The Mustaine book. It's so good. Diary of a fucking 50-year-old fucking crybaby. It's amazing. It's so good.
It's like a book-length version of the scene in Some Kind of Monster where he's sad that his band has sold so many records.
Essentially, yeah. But it's still a great read. I highly recommend.
That's not what I thought was coming, because you dropped a fair amount of wah hate lately when I've been sending you Kirk Hammett gifs.
Well, that's because we're talking about, it depends on what
we were talking about Load specifically.
About. Yeah, the wah in Load. Look, wah is fine if you throw it on a solo. You can't throw wah on every fucking riff, though. If every verse on your stupid fucking album has wah on it, that's a bad album.
Only Alice in Chains can do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that Load is just, oh god, it's just horrible. It's like somebody was trying to be Alice in Chains and COC at the same time. But was somehow worse than every fucking local band in Oklahoma City trying to do the exact same thing.
All the riffs are so basic. Such elementary. Like, I just figured out the boxes go together on the frets, and I'm no longer doing open one to sound scary. I'm doing a whole step 5 to 7.
Yeah.
But what I liked about it when I went back to it and was texting you is just it sounds heavy and deliberate. Like they were like, this is what we're doing. And it didn't sound like a band trying to find itself the way that the following few did. Load isn't metal, but it's unfortunately is the gateway drug that gave us, Nickelback and kind of the party rock bands.
It's the audio equivalent of a flame print silk shirt, button-down shirt. And I'll tell you this, it's also a classic example of a band that just is riding this huge wave of success from a huge record, and they were probably on tour for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And just like, just getting into all kinds of shit, and they're super rich. You're riding speedboats on your off days, and like, you're just getting into other shit. It's just not Enter Sandman, because you play that fucking every day for 1,200 days. And then you just have no inspiration, and then you cut hair, and you pierce your fucking lip, and
you ride your 6 motorcycles, and you write Bleeding Me like a fucking 8-minute jammer.
And you lose your way. You lose your way. And then you're like trying to find your way again. So you're like, what's cool now? And then by that time, it's like the year 1999 or 2000. And you're like, oh, cool. Limp Bizkit and Avril Lavigne and Korn and Snoop Dogg are cool. And then Saint Anger happens, because then you're just completely just rudderless. And then 8 years later, it takes Rick Rubin to come in and be like, okay, guys, here's how you fucking write riff. It's like fucking index finger on the fucking first fret, ring finger on the 3rd fret.
He's like, let me tune that back up to E for you. I'm just going to you just hold your finger there at 5, and I'm going to just bring it back up.
Let me show you what a palm mute is. And you just do that and repeat.
Well, I think this one has no choice but to be unanimous, because you're not going to put Symphony of Destruction up against Enter Sandman and win.
I'm curious to see what our enormous listenership does in terms of voting.
Yeah, the last one was probably just me going to different locations so that the IP address changes, and then I could vote again, and I still only got to 45%.
Do we know how many people actually voted?
I have to look at the plugin, but there was some heated online conversation, mostly in favor of, well, not in favor of Sugar Ray, but against Smash Mouth.
Wait, where was this taking place?
Some on my Instagram, some on Facebook.
Oh.
People really hate Smash Mouth.
They are kind of like cool to hate at the moment.
But what I really loved about your realization is that the songs I was talking about weren't as bad as you thought, and then the whole rest of the Sugar Ray record was worse than you thought. It was so poetic and beautiful. I'm gonna let my dog out.